You ever get that gut-wrenching feeling? That cold prickle on the back of your neck, even when you're absolutely, positively sure you're alone in the house. But something still feels just a little bit off? Maybe it's the way the shadow stretches too long in the hallway, or a whisper of air that isn't the AC. That deep, primal instinct screaming at you that you're not as safe as you think you are. Tonight, we're going to meet 3 families who felt that chill, who heard that whisper, and who, for one reason or another, chose to ignore it. They tried to rationalize it away, or they prayed it away, or they simply couldn't fathom the true horror lurking just out of sight. One family, devout in their faith, tried to pray the darkness out of their son, only to wind up booking a morgue instead of a hospital bed. Another, a seemingly normal household, begged the police to investigate the unsettling thumps and whispers in their attic, only to learn, in the most terrifying way imaginable, that the monster they feared had never actually left their home. And the last, well, they're still struggling to explain how a quiet night, a simple game, spiraled into a funeral, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and a house that refuses to forget. These aren't campfire tales, folks. These aren't urban legends passed around on anonymous forums. The official reports are public record. The photos? Time-stamped, chillingly real. And every single one of these true horror stories ends with someone, usually a survivor, asking, with a haunted look in their eyes, "How did we not see it coming?" So, if you've got the guts, dim the lights, crank up the volume. If prepare yourself, because once you hear these, you might just find yourself checking under the bed a little more often. Story 1. The cable tie exorcism. Our first story starts innocently enough, like any other Tuesday in a tidy, unassuming North London row house. It's August 2016, and the Ife family is going about their day. But by the end of it, their world, and the life of their beloved son, Kennedy, would be irrevocably shattered, culminating in a body zipped into plastic, a family torn apart, and a community grappling with an unthinkable tragedy. Kennedy Ife was only 26 years old, a strapping, healthy young man brimming with life. He was the kind of guy who could charm you into buying a phone plan you absolutely didn't need and still leave you smiling about it. Athletic, popular, and incredibly close to his 7 brothers, Kennedy seemed utterly fearless. He had a bright future ahead of him, full of promise and potential. That is, until the 3rd week of August 2016. Until something shifted. Something profoundly disturbing began to take hold. It started subtly. On that fateful Tuesday, Kennedy complained of a headache, a minor ailment easily dismissed. But by Thursday, his symptoms had escalated dramatically. He was telling his mom, his voice laced with genuine terror, that something cold, something reptilian, was slithering through his veins. He described it as a python, moving beneath his skin, twisting and coiling. His family, a tight-knit Pentecostal household, initially responded with what they knew best: prayer. They believed in the power of faith in spiritual warfare, and in casting out evil. They gathered around him, their voices rising in earnest supplication, convinced that this was a spiritual attack, a demonic presence seeking to claim their son. But prayer, for all its fervent sincerity, didn't calm Kennedy. In fact, he seemed to grow more agitated, more violent. Friday night, in a terrifying display of strength, he ripped the headboard clean off his bed frame, screaming, truly screaming, that a python lived in his stomach and it demanded to be set free. The family, convinced they weren't dealing with a physical illness but a malevolent entity, took desperate measures. They told investigators later that they weren't restraining a person. They were restraining whatever had gotten inside him. The belief was absolute, unwavering. The next morning, as Kennedy's thrashing continued, they upgraded their restraints. Heavy-duty zip ties were cinched around his ankles and chest, then looped through the bed slats, binding him tightly to prevent him from thrashing free. They believed they were protecting him, protecting themselves. And doctors, however, were never called. Medical intervention, in their eyes, was for earthly ailments, not for demonic possession. Instead, water was placed just out of his reach, a cruel tactic designed to force him to submit to the spirit they were trying to exorcise before he could drink. It was a test of wills, a spiritual siege. Cousins came in shifts, a grim vigil. They recited psalms, their voices echoing in the increasingly strained atmosphere of the house. They even uploaded short video clips to group chats, tagging pastors and other church members for spiritual backup, hoping for guidance for a miracle. In one of those chilling, time-stamped clips, recorded at 22:41 on August 27th, you can hear a relative's voice, firm and resolute, saying, "If you resist, the demon gets stronger." And then, heartbreakingly, Kennedy's own voice, weak and gasping, responding, "I can't breathe." The footage captures a man struggling for air, for life, while his family, blinded by their fervent belief, interpreted his agony as the demon's resistance. The irony, the tragic, unbearable irony, is almost too much to bear. By 6:30 on August 30th, just a few days after that harrowing video, Kennedy Ife was dead. The autopsy report was blunt, devoid of spiritual interpretation, speaking only in the cold, hard language of science. The cause of death: positional asphyxia, severe dehydration, and over 60 linear bruises covering his body, perfectly matching the width and impression of the zip ties used to restrain him. Police investigators, arriving on the scene, found the very same plastic cuffs, a gruesome souvenir, neatly tucked away in a bedroom drawer. The evidence was undeniable, stark, and utterly devastating. 6 of Kennedy's brothers were arrested, facing charges of false imprisonment, manslaughter, and allowing the death of a vulnerable adult. The case quickly drew national attention, with court reporters scribbling the phrase "modern-day exorcism gone wrong." But detectives, grounded in the realities of law and order, called it what it was: a homicide by willful neglect. There was no demon in the room, they argued, only a young man in desperate need of medical help and a family tragically unable to provide it. At trial, the defense clung desperately to the concept of religious fervor, arguing that the family genuinely believed they were saving Kennedy's soul, operating under the sincere, albeit misguided, conviction that he was possessed. They painted a picture of a family driven by faith, not malice. But the prosecution had that 22:41 clip. They played it for the jury, a real-time countdown of a man dying, his pleas for air ignored, while his family tried to cast out Satan instead of calling an ambulance. It was an excruciating piece of evidence, laying bare the tragic consequences of their actions. The verdict was swift and unequivocal, guilty across the board. Sentences ranged from 3 to 7 years, a heavy price for a family already shattered. Before the gavel struck, the judge added one chilling, unforgettable line, a stark commentary on the case. "If evil exists, it looked like indifference. It's a harrowing thought, isn't it? Next time you assume the people who love you most, your family, your closest circle, would do absolutely anything to keep you alive and safe, remember Kennedy Ife." He learned the hardest way possible that sometimes the greatest danger isn't some unseen demon lurking within you. It's the people around you, too proud, too blinded by their own convictions, to admit they just can't see the truth. It's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are born not of malice, but of tragically misplaced belief. Story 2, The Walk-in Closet Killer. Our second story takes us away from the fervor of faith and into the quiet, unsettling dread of a seemingly ordinary home. We're heading to Jonestown, Pennsylvania, a place so small, so utterly unassuming, that local cops jokingly refer to its sole traffic light as downtown. It's February 2017, and the Short family, Dad Bill, Mom, and their 8th grade daughter, Emma, are living what appears to be a perfectly normal life. Until, that is, the house started to talk back. It began subtly, as these things often do. Soft, rhythmic thumps emanating from above the kitchen ceiling. At first, they blamed squirrels, a common enough nuisance in older homes. The kind of thing you shrug off, maybe call an exterminator for, but certainly not something to lose sleep over. But then came the whispers. Faint, Indistinct murmurs, usually around 3 a.m., just loud enough to stir you from sleep, just soft enough to make you doubt you heard anything at all. Bill, a practical man, grabbed his trusty .38 revolver and a flashlight, checked the attic hatch. He found nothing but pink insulation, undisturbed. No squirrels, no signs of forced entry. Just the silence, thick and heavy. And the lingering question of what he'd really heard. The couple, growing increasingly uneasy, called the police twice. Each time officers arrived, did a cursory sweep, and noted the old house settling, suggesting they invest in a carbon monoxide detector. Another rational explanation, another box checked. But the weirdness persisted. A week later, and woke to the overpowering smell of her own perfume. Not a faint trace, but strong. But if someone had just sprayed it liberally in the hallway right outside their bedroom, it was her signature scent. But she hadn't used it. Bill, meanwhile, found muddy boot prints leading from the back door, which was locked, through the house, and down into the basement. The security camera facing the driveway, their only witness, conveniently glitched for exactly 23 minutes at the crucial time, leaving nothing but static snow on the recording. A strange, unnerving coincidence. The unease escalated. On March 3rd, their daughter, Emma, refused point-blank to sleep upstairs. She was terrified, claiming someone had stroked her hair while she slept. It was the kind of chilling, intimate violation that shattered any pretense of safety. Though skeptical, indulged her daughter's fear. The three of them bunked together in the living room, lights blazing, the TV looping cartoons, a desperate attempt to create a bubble of normalcy against the encroaching dread. They hoped that by staying together, by keeping the lights on, they could somehow ward off whatever was tormenting them. But it wasn't enough. At 4:12 a.m., the smoke alarm blared, a piercing shriek that cut through the cartoons. Flames, orange and ravenous, were already licking at the second-floor banister. They sprinted outside, a terrifying escape from their burning home. Firefighters arrived, battling the blaze, and later found gasoline poured liberally through the attic pull-down access. Arson, clearly, but the accelerant traces told a more disturbing story. The fuel had started on the roof, not inside, meaning someone was already up there, waiting, before the fire was even set. Investigators, now taking the family's claims seriously, discovered a narrow gap behind the chimney stack, just wide enough for a body to slide down into the wall cavity. It was a secret passage, a hidden world within their own home. And inside that gap, they found the chilling evidence of a prolonged, clandestine occupation. Empty canned beans, discarded water jugs, and a sleeping bag, worn and faded, stitched with the initials JD. A local transient named James Darwin had vanished 2 years earlier after the plant he worked for shut down. He was a ghost in the community, easily forgotten. Neighbors vaguely remembered him as the quiet guy who had once trimmed the short's hedges for $20. A familiar face easily dismissed. Darwin, it turned out, had been living inside their walls for an estimated 8 weeks. He'd used the central heating ducts as his personal hallways, moving silently, unseen, through the very fabric of their home. The pantry became his grocery store, raided nightly for sustenance. The attic, with its insulation and hidden nooks, was his bedroom. The nighttime thumps, not squirrels, but him shifting his weight, moving about his hidden domain. The perfume smell? He'd brazenly lifted Anne's bottle, spritzed himself, perhaps to mask his own scent, then returned it bold and casual in his invasion. When the family finally decided to leave the lights on and sleep together downstairs, he lost access to the fridge, to his pantry. He probably panicked. The arson wasn't just an act of destruction. It was his eviction notice, his desperate attempt to drive them out, so he could reclaim his hidden sanctuary. But the worst part of this story, if you can believe it, was still to come. 3 nights after the fire, while the Shorts were staying in a motel, police responded to a 911 hang-up call originating from the burnt, hollowed-out shell of their house. Officer bodycam footage shows them sweeping the ground floor, flashlights cutting through the smoke-stained darkness. when a single, deafening gunshot cracks from upstairs. Backup arrived, guns drawn, hearts pounding. They found Bill Short's .38 revolver, the very one he'd taken to the attic, discarded near the scorched landing. And then, in the walk-in closet, they found James Darwin. He was dead, a contact bullet wound to the head. The official ruling, suicide. Detectives never quite figured out how Darwin managed to get back inside the heavily damaged, guarded house, or why he fired only once, or whether he meant to shoot the responding officers, or simply invite them to aim to end his pathetic, hidden existence. What they do know, what stands as a chilling testament to the power of intuition, is that a family of 3 is alive today because a 12-year-old girl, Emma, trusted her fear, that unshakable primal dread, more than every adult who told her, dismissively, "It's just squirrels." So, if you hear footsteps tonight, a soft scuttling where there shouldn't be any. If your child starts talking about things moving in the night, maybe, just maybe, check the walls. Because you never know who might be living alongside you, silently, patiently, waiting, before the walls check you. Story 3. The Ouija basement. Our third and final story is shorter in days, perhaps, but tragically long in its consequences, leaving a haunting echo that persists to this very day. This tale unfolds in a split-level house just outside St. Louis, a place infamous for 2 very specific things. First, a finished basement so poorly insulated that no landlord in their right mind would ever bother to winterize it properly. And second, a disturbing string of previous tenants who, without fail, all broke their leases early, fleeing under mysterious circumstances. 19-year-old Emily Drury, however, was oblivious to, or perhaps simply chose to ignore, the house's unsettling history. She joked about the place having character, a youthful dismissal of what was, in retrospect, a deeply troubled dwelling. Emily was vibrant, full of life, until a cruel twist of fate struck her down. Her boyfriend died in a devastating motorcycle crash, on her birthday no less, a date forever tainted by unimaginable grief. The world, for Emily, shattered into a million pieces. In the immediate aftermath, friends rallied around her, bringing casseroles, offering comfort, trying to mend the gaping wound in her heart. But Emily, lost in a haze of sorrow, began to seek solace elsewhere. One day, a Parker Brothers Ouija board appeared in the house. Emily's roommate, Lexi, swore Emily hadn't owned it the day before. It just was there. A seemingly innocuous object, a gateway to something far more sinister. Lexi later recounted to police the chilling transformation that took hold of Emily. Her grief, already profound, morphed into an obsession. Emily would slide the planchette alone, in the dead of night, her whispers echoing in the quiet house as she posed questions to the unseen, waiting desperately for answers. This became her routine, a nightly ritual fueled by a desperate longing for connection with her lost love. At 2 a.m., like clockwork, she'd light a candle, her face illuminated by its flickering glow. "Are you here?" she'd ask, her voice barely a breath. The candle, inexplicably, would snuff itself out. Then, slowly, deliberately, the planchette would begin to move, spelling out messages from beyond. And she would repeat the process, night after night, sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. Lexi, understandably, grew increasingly unnerved. The atmosphere in the house became suffocating, heavy with an oppressive dread. She started noticing a pervasive metallic smell, like wet pennies that won't leave, she told police. It clung to everything, seeped into the furniture, permeated the air. After 3 weeks of this escalating horror, Lexi packed her bags and moved out, citing the unbearable smell and the terrifying nightly rituals as her reasons. She couldn't take it anymore. Emily, however, stayed. She was tethered to the house, to the board, to her grief. Her social media, once a vibrant stream of youthful exuberance, transformed into a morbid diary. She posted daily selfies, her captions growing increasingly unsettling, often simply grief therapy. Her final photo, dated October 12th, captured a chilling image. Emily's eyes, wide and unfocused, rolled back in her head, almost entirely white. The caption, scrawled beneath the haunting image, was a single, terrifying sentence. "He says come downstairs." The very next day, October 13th, Lexi returned to the house, needing to retrieve some forgotten mail. The front door was unlocked, a silent invitation. A faint, eerie glow emanated from the basement bulb, casting long, dancing shadows. Lexi descended the stairs, dread coiling in her stomach, and found Emily. She was hanging from a support beam, the hood of her gray sweater pulled low, obscuring her face, her feet just inches above a meticulously drawn chalk circle on the cold concrete floor. The coroner's report noted a ligature furrow consistent with a climbing rope, a type of material not typically associated with suicide. The time of death was estimated to be roughly 12 hours before discovery, meaning she had hung there through the night. After posting that final, haunting selfie, the implications were chilling. Emily had not only died, but she had died in the exact manner suggested by the Ouija board, in the very place it had commanded her to go. Investigators, sifting through the digital remnants of Emily's life, found her phone's search history. It contained one repeated phrase, typed over and over again: how to keep a soul anchored. Tab after tab pulled up blogs on binding rituals, on how to create salt circles for protection, and, most disturbingly, on offering blood without pain. Crime scene photos confirmed the chilling connection. Salt had been poured thick as frost along the basement baseboards, forming a protective barrier, a ritualistic circle. Yet, the outline was broken precisely at the spot where the rope crossed the beam, as if something had stepped through it, had breached the ritualistic defense. Authorities, in their official capacity, filed it as a suicide, compounded by an unhealthy interest in the occult. A tragic case of a young woman driven to despair. But locals, the ones who knew the house's history, told a different, far more terrifying ending. The house, predictably, went up for rent again. But every single applicant who dared to approach the property found their phone inexplicably dying the moment they hit the top of the basement stairs. One brave or foolish couple actually lasted 4 days inside. They fled in terror after the bathroom mirror steamed up, not from a hot shower, but with a single, chilling word scrawled across its surface. Still, property records now list the place as vacant pending demolition, a bureaucratic euphemism for a house no one dares to inhabit. Yet, neighbors swear they see the basement light snap on every October 12th, the same hour Emily posted her last, spectral photo. A flicker in the darkness, a chilling reminder that some presences, once invited, simply refuse to leave. So, if you ever find a board you didn't buy, a strange planchette appearing out of nowhere, maybe, just maybe, leave it in the box. Because once you ask the dead to speak, once you open that door, the real trick, the true horror, is getting them to stop. If these stories are crawling under your skin, making the hairs on your arms stand on end, then good. That's precisely the point. True horror doesn't need elaborate costumes or jump scares. It walks in through the doors we forget to lock, slips through the cracks in our understanding, and exploits the very human vulnerabilities we try so hard to hide. Before the next spine-chilling tale keeps you awake tonight, consider tapping that subscribe button. Why? Because every single month we dig up cases just like these, the ones the major news outlets bury on page 6, too strange or too unsettling for the mainstream. We bring you the documented, the verified, the truly terrifying. And hey, want your own shot at being featured? If you've got a real-life encounter, something genuinely creepy that happened to you, drop it in the comments below. The most unsettling, the most inexplicable ones might just get read in future compilations. And if you need a palate cleanser after all this, something to wash away the lingering dread, we've got plenty of lists on weird history too. Fascinating, bizarre, but thankfully no demons required. The choice is yours. 3 families, 3 distinct horrors, 3 doors slammed shut by tragedy, leaving behind questions that echo in the silence. The Ifes, devout in their faith, thought belief could never hurt, that prayer was an impenetrable shield. The Shorts trusted for walls and a deadbolt, believing their home was their sanctuary, that logic would prevail. Emily, lost in the crushing weight of grief, believed she could find answers, solace even, in the whispers from beyond. Each of them learned, in the most brutal way imaginable, that horror rarely announces itself with dramatic violins and flickering light bulbs. It doesn't need a grand entrance. Instead, it slips in quietly, insidiously, between what we choose to believe and what we stubbornly refuse to see. It preys on our blind spots, our assumptions, our moments of vulnerability. So, the next time your dog stares intently at a blank hallway, growling softly at nothing you can discern, or when your kid swears the closet door clicked shut on its own, maybe, just maybe, listen a little closer. Don't dismiss it. Check the locks, double-check the attic hatch, call a doctor if someone you love is acting strangely. Or for heaven's sake, move that dusty Ouija board straight to the trash. Because the only thing worse than discovering evil, than realizing the true extent of the darkness, is the horrifying, gut-wrenching realization that you, in your innocence or your denial, actually welcomed it in. One fervent prayer, one unsettling attic creak, one flickering candle at a time. If you made it this far, congratulations. Your bedtime is officially ruined. Consider it a badge of honor. Now, do yourself a favor, leave a light on, maybe two. Check the attic latch, peek under the bed one last time. And whatever you do, for your own sake, don't watch this one again alone. Sweet dreams. If you can still manage to have them.